Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive chamber, looking up at the curved walls that rose high above his head. The Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime was bigger than any structure he had ever seen on Earth. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that changed colors as different aliens moved around the room. Blue light danced across the surface when the tall, thin beings from Althar walked by. Green waves followed the floating jellyfish-like creatures from the water worlds. Red pulses marked the path of the rock-skinned warriors from the Corvani Empire. Jake felt very small in this place. He was the first human to ever stand in this chamber. 3 years ago, nobody in the galaxy even knew humans existed. Now he was here as Earth's only representative, speaking for 8 billion people who lived light years away. The chamber held representatives from 47 different alien species. Some looked almost human, with 2 arms and 2 legs. Others were so strange that Jake still had trouble believing they were real. There were beings made of living metal, creatures that looked like walking trees, and things that seemed to be made entirely of colored gas floating in glass containers. All of them were staring at him now. At the front of the chamber sat Speaker Veltar, the leader of the Galactic Council. The speaker was 12 feet tall and looked like a living diamond. Light seemed to come from inside its body, creating patterns that Jake had learned meant different emotions. Right now, the patterns showed something like sadness mixed with fear. "Human, Representative Jake Morrison," the speaker said in a voice that sounded like crystal bells ringing. The translation device in Jake's ear turned the alien words into English. "We have called you here to discuss a matter of great importance to your species." Jake nodded but said nothing. He had learned that in galactic politics, it was better to listen first and speak second. The other species in the council had been dealing with each other for thousands of years. Humans were still learning the rules. "The Zephyrian Empire has made demands," Speaker Veltar continued. The crystal being's light patterns shifted to show deep worry. "They want 3 of your colony worlds. They want New Denver, Hope Station, and Liberty Port. If humanity does not give up these worlds in 7 standard days, the Zephyrians will attack." A cold feeling spread through Jake's stomach. He had heard stories about the Zephyrian Empire from other diplomats. They were a species that looked like giant insects, but they flew ships that were alive. Their bioships could eat entire planets, turning rock and metal into more ships. In the past 100 years, they had conquered 17 different star systems. Billions of beings had died or become slaves. "The council has discussed this matter," the speaker went on. Around the chamber, Jake could see alien representatives looking away from him. Some were studying the floor. Others were whispering to each other in languages his translator could not understand. "We are sorry, but the council cannot help humanity in this matter." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. "May I ask why the council cannot help?" A new voice spoke up from across the chamber. It came from General Thex, a gray-skinned alien wearing military decorations. "Because fighting the Zephyrians means death," the general said. His voice was rough, like gravel grinding together. "My people learned this 50 years ago. We sent our greatest fleet against them. 3,000 ships. The Zephyrians destroyed them all in 6 hours. The Althari Collective tried to negotiate," added another voice. This came from Ambassador Zixith, an insect-like being with 4 arms. "We offered the Zephyrians technology, resources, even some of our own worlds. They took everything and demanded more. There is no reasoning with them." "The Narratians tried to hide," said a third voice from one of the floating water tanks. "We built cities in the deepest oceans of our worlds. The Zephyrians found us anyway. Their bioships can drink entire seas." Jake looked around the chamber and saw the same expression on every alien face, no matter how different they looked. Fear. These were species that had traveled between stars for thousands of years. They had technology that seemed like magic to humans. But they were all afraid of the Zephyrians. "What exactly are the Zephyrian demands?" Jake asked. Speaker Veltar's light patterns shifted to show embarrassment. "They want your 3 colonies emptied of all humans within 7 days. After that, they will move their own people to those worlds. Any humans who remain will be killed or enslaved. And if we refuse?" Then they will send their war fleets to destroy all human worlds, including Earth itself, the speaker said. The Zephyrian war leader Kythera has promised to make humanity an example. She wants other species to see what happens when anyone defies the Empire. Jake was quiet for a long moment. He could feel 47 pairs of alien eyes watching him, waiting to see how the human would react. Would he beg for help? Would he offer to trade other human worlds to save these three? Would he break down and cry? Instead, Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. It looked like a simple communication tablet, but it was actually much more advanced. It was connected to a quantum communication array that could send messages instantly across the galaxy, back to Earth. "What are you doing?" asked General Thex. "I'm recording this conversation," Jake said simply. "My government will want to know exactly what was said here today." Some of the aliens looked confused. A few looked worried. Speaker Veltar's light patterns showed surprise. "You are recording the council session?" the speaker asked. "Yes," Jake said. "Everything that has been said here is being transmitted back to Earth in real time. My leaders are listening to this conversation right now." The chamber became very quiet. Jake could hear the soft humming of the environmental systems that kept the air breathable for 47 different species. "Human Morrison," said Ambassador Zixith. "Do you understand the situation? The Zephyrians have never been defeated. Their bioships can regenerate from any damage. Their weapons can crack planets. Your species has only been in space for 50 years. You have maybe 100 small ships while they have thousands of giant war vessels." Jake nodded. "I understand what you're telling me." "Then you will advise your government to surrender the colonies?" asked Speaker Veltar. Jake looked up at the crystal being and spoke in a calm, steady voice. "I will relay this information to my government. They will make their own decision." "But surely you see that resistance is hopeless," pressed General Thex. "My people were warriors for 10,000 years before the Zephyrians crushed us. Your species hasn't even had a real space battle." "That's true," Jake agreed. "We haven't." The aliens in the chamber exchanged looks. Jake's calm response was not what they had expected. They had seen hundreds of species receive ultimatums from the Zephyrians. Usually there was panic, begging, desperate offers of tribute. But this human just stood there showing no fear at all. "The Council will give humanity 3 days to decide," Speaker Veltar announced. "If you choose to fight, we cannot help you. If you choose to surrender the colonies, we will help arrange the evacuation." Jake bowed slightly to the speaker. "The government of Earth thanks the Galactic Council for its time and consideration. We will have an answer for you within the specified time frame." He turned and walked toward the chamber's exit. His footsteps echoed in the huge space. Behind him he could hear the aliens starting to whisper among themselves in dozens of different languages. As Jake reached the door, he heard General Thex call out, "Human, do you really think your people can fight the Zephyrians and win?" Jake stopped and looked back at the alien general. For the first time since entering the chamber, he smiled. "General Thex," he said, "I think you're about to find out." Then he walked through the door, leaving 47 alien species to wonder what the human had meant by those words. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the center of the command room, watching dozens of screens that showed star maps from across human space. The room was buried deep under the Rocky Mountains in North America, protected by hundreds of feet of solid rock. This was the heart of Earth's military operations, a place that most humans didn't even know existed. The message from Jake Morrison had arrived 20 minutes ago. Every word of his conversation with the Galactic Council had been recorded and analyzed. Now the most powerful military leaders from every nation on Earth were gathering in this room to decide humanity's response. "Status report," Lisa said to the room. Colonel Dan Murphy stepped forward. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. For the past 5 years he had been in charge of humanity's secret military buildup. "All battle groups are at ready status," he said. "We have 312 ships of various classes positioned throughout our territory. Another 48, Vessels are completing final preparations and will be ready within 12 hours. What about the colonies? Asked General Rick Barnes. He commanded the Colonial Marine Corps, the ground forces that protected human settlements on distant worlds. Rick was shorter than the other officers, but his presence filled the room. Everyone knew his reputation from the border conflicts with space pirates. New Denver has been evacuated, Colonel Murphy replied. All 20,000 civilians are aboard transport ships heading for safe systems. Hope Station and Liberty Port evacuations are 70% complete. We'll have everyone out within 6 hours. Lisa nodded. The evacuation had been planned. Years ago, just in case something like this happened, every human colony had escape routes and emergency procedures. The aliens in the Galactic Council thought humans were unprepared, but they were wrong. Captain Amy Rodriguez entered the room, still wearing her ship's uniform. She had just arrived from the outer system, where her vessel, the Valiant, was docked at a hidden military station. Amy was one of the youngest ship captains in the human fleet, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. Captain Rodriguez, Lisa said, "What's the status of the outer defense fleet?" "All ships are armed and ready, Admiral," Amy replied. "The new kinetic weapons have been installed on every vessel. Our engineers finished the last upgrades yesterday." General Rick Barnes looked at the star map on the main screen. Red dots showed where Zephyrian forces were known to be operating. Blue dots marked human positions. "Admiral, are we really going to fight them?" The Galactic Council made it sound like the Zephyrians are unbeatable. Lisa smiled, but it was not a happy expression. "General Barnes, what do you know about the Zephyrian military?" "What everyone knows," Rick replied. "They have bioships that can heal themselves. Their weapons can destroy planets. They've conquered 17 star systems in the past 100 years. "That's what everyone believes," Lisa said. "But we've been studying them for 3 years. Captain Rodriguez, show the General what we've learned." Amy walked to a control panel and activated a holographic display. The air above the table filled with the image of a Zephyrian bioship. It looked like a giant insect with wings made of metal and flesh. Glowing tubes ran along its surface, pulsing with energy. The Zephyrians grow their ships instead of building them, Amy explained. Each vessel is a living creature bred for war. They can repair damage by regenerating injured parts. Their weapons are biological too, firing concentrated plasma that burns through most materials. "Sounds pretty scary," said Colonel Murphy. "It is," Amy agreed. "But they have weaknesses. The bioships need constant nutrition to stay alive. They have to return to feeding stations every few weeks. Their regeneration only works against energy damage. Physical trauma to vital organs kills them just like any other living thing." Lisa stepped forward. "More importantly, the Zephyrians have been using the same tactics for 200 years. They rely on their reputation to make enemies surrender without fighting. When they do fight, they use overwhelming plasma bombardment to destroy enemy shields, then move in close to finish off disabled ships. But their tactics work," General Barnes pointed out. "They've never lost a major battle. They've never fought humans," Lisa replied. "Every species they've defeated uses energy shields and plasma weapons. The galactic standard for space combat is energy-based technology. Ship-to-ship battles are usually won by whoever has stronger shields and bigger plasma cannons." Amy activated another holographic display. This one showed a human warship, angular and gray, covered in armor plates and weapon pods. "We took a different path. While other species focused on energy technology, we developed kinetic weapons and physical armor." "Explain that for those of us who aren't engineers," said General Barnes. "Kinetic weapons fire solid projectiles at very high speeds," Amy said. "Metal rods accelerated to tremendous velocities. They don't care about energy shields because they're not energy. They punch right through plasma barriers like they aren't there." Colonel Murphy was studying the ship designs. "What about our defenses? If their plasma weapons are so powerful." "Layered armor plating," Lisa answered. "Multiple sheets of advanced metals with gap spacing. Plasma bolts burn through the outer layers but lose energy with each impact. By the time they reach the inner hull, they're weak enough that our armor can stop them completely." The room was quiet as the officers absorbed this information. Finally, General Barnes spoke up. You're saying we built our entire fleet to counter Zephyrian tactics? Not just Zephyrian tactics, Lisa corrected. We studied every major space battle in galactic history. Every species uses similar technology and similar strategies. We designed our ships to fight all of them. Captain Rodriguez brought up tactical simulations on the main screen. We've run thousands of battle scenarios. In every simulation, human kinetic weapons destroy Zephyrian bioships faster than they can regenerate. Our armor stops their plasma attacks. Our ships are faster and more maneuverable. Simulations aren't real battles, Colonel Murphy warned. No, they're not, Lisa agreed. But we've tested our weapons against captured alien technology. We've studied recordings of every Zephyrian battle we could obtain. We know how they fight and we know how to beat them. General Barnes was looking at the fleet positions on the star map. How many ships are we talking about? The aliens said the Zephyrians have thousands of war vessels. They do, Lisa said. But they spread them across 17 conquered systems. Intelligence suggests they'll send maybe 500 ships for the initial attack on our colonies. They don't expect serious resistance, so they won't commit their entire fleet. 500 against 300, Colonel Murphy calculated. Those aren't great odds. They are when our ships are specifically designed to kill theirs, Amy said. Plus, we have advantages they don't know about. Human ships can coordinate attacks using quantum communication. We can share targeting data instantly across the entire fleet. The Zephyrians still use slower-than-light communications for fleet coordination. Lisa walked to the star map and pointed to the new Denver system. This is where they'll attack first. It's the most valuable of the 3 colonies they demanded. Captain Rodriguez, how long until the Outer Defense Fleet reaches New Denver? 18 hours at maximum speed, Amy replied. We'll arrive 6 hours before the deadline expires. Good. We want to be there when they show up. Lisa turned to address the entire room. Gentlemen, lady, humanity is about to fight its first major space battle. The outcome will determine whether we become a respected member of the galactic community or another species ground under Zephyrian boots. Colonel Murphy raised his hand. Admiral, what if we're wrong? What if our weapons don't work as expected? What if there are more Zephyrian ships than we calculated? Lisa looked at each officer in turn. These were good people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. They deserved an honest answer. Then we'll adapt, she said simply. That's what humans do. We learn, we improvise, we overcome. The Zephyrians have been the same for 200 years. We've been changing and growing every day since we left Earth. That's our real advantage. General Barnes nodded slowly. When do we leave? Battle groups are already moving, Lisa replied. We're using civilian shipping lanes and trade routes to mask our approach. The Zephyrians think they're hunting helpless prey. They have no idea the prey has teeth. Amy was checking her communication device. Admiral, I'm receiving deployment orders for my ship. The Valiant will be part of the advance force, Lisa confirmed. Your job is to make first contact with the Zephyrian fleet. Show them what human weapons can do. Yes, ma'am, Amy said with a grin. Should be fun. As the officers began filing out to return to their commands, General Barnes paused next to Lisa. Admiral, do you really think we can win this? Lisa looked at the star map, where blue dots representing human ships were moving toward their destiny. General, 3 years ago the Galactic Council didn't even know we existed. Today they're about to discover what humans are really capable of. Commander Pete Sullivan stood on the bridge of his ship, the Iron Wolf, watching the sensor displays with calm attention. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. They had been waiting in the new Denver system for 6 hours, hidden behind the planet's largest moon. Contact, announced Lieutenant Mary Johnson from the sensor station. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Pete nodded. How many? Counting now, sir. I'm reading. 47, 52, 63. Mary's voice trailed off as more ships appeared on her screen.
Sir, I count 218 vessels. They're huge. Put it on the main screen, Pete ordered. The forward display came alive with the image of the Zephyrian fleet. Even from this distance, the bioships were impressive. Each one looked like a giant insect crossed with a spaceship.
Their hulls pulsed with organic light and wing-like extensions spread out from their central bodies. Some were over a mile long. "They're beautiful," whispered Ensign Bob Carter from the communication station. "And terrifying," Pete had to agree. The Zephyrian bioships moved through space with a fluid grace that no human-built vessel could match. They didn't fly so much as swim through the darkness, their organic hulls rippling with each course change. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Bob reported. "It's coming from the largest ship in their fleet." "Put it through," Pete said. The main screen changed to show the interior of a Zephyrian command ship. The walls were alive, pulsing with veins of light. In the center sat a creature that stood nearly 8 feet tall. It looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a spider, with 4 arms and skin that shifted between green and black. Multiple eyes focused on the camera. "I am Supreme War Leader Cathara of the Zephyrian Empire," the creature said in a voice like grinding metal. Pete's translator converted the alien words into English. "You are the humans who dare to defy our rightful claim to these worlds." Pete stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. "I am Commander Pete Sullivan of the Terran Defense Force. This system belongs to humanity." Kithra's multiple eyes blinked in what might have been amusement. "You have 12 ships, human. I have over 200. Your vessels look like metal boxes compared to the living art of Zephyrian biotechnology. Do you truly believe you can stand against us?" "We'll find out," Pete replied simply. The war leader leaned forward in what looked like a throne made of living bone. "I will give you one final chance to surrender. Order your pathetic fleet to withdraw, and I will kill only half of your crews. Refuse, and I will destroy every human ship and then burn your colonies to ash." Pete looked around his bridge at his crew. Lieutenant Johnson was monitoring enemy positions. Ensign Carter was ready to relay orders to the other human ships. At the weapons station, Chief Petty Officer Ellen Brooks had her finger hovering over the firing controls. All of them were looking at him, waiting for his decision. "War Leader Cathara," Pete said, turning back to the screen. "I have a counter-offer. Withdraw your fleet from this system now and we won't destroy it." The alien's mandibles clicked together in what was clearly laughter. "Destroy my fleet? Human, your species has been in space for less than a century. We have been conquering worlds since before your ancestors learned to make fire. Watch now as I demonstrate the power of the Zephyrian Empire." The transmission ended. On the tactical display, Pete could see the bioships beginning to move into attack formation. They spread out in a complex pattern that looked almost like a flower blooming in space. "All ships, this is Iron Wolf Actual," Pete announced over the fleet communication channel. "Enemy is moving to attack formation. Implement Battle Plan Alpha. Weapons free on my command." The 12 human ships that had been hiding behind the moon suddenly came into view. Compared to the graceful bioships, they looked crude and angular. The Iron Wolf was typical of human military design. A long gray rectangle covered in armor plates and weapon pods. No curves, no organic beauty, just functional engineering. "Enemy ships are charging weapons," Lieutenant Johnson reported. "I'm reading massive energy buildup across their entire fleet." Pete watched the tactical display as the Zephyrian ships completed their formation. He had studied recordings of their attacks against other species. They always started the same way. Overwhelming plasma bombardment designed to destroy enemy shields in the first few seconds of battle. "All ships prepare for incoming fire," Pete announced. "Remember your training. Their weapons can't hurt what they can't penetrate." The Zephyrian attack began with a wall of green fire that lit up space like a small sun. Hundreds of plasma bolts streaked toward the human ships, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize a city block. It was the same attack that had broken the defenses of 17 different species. The plasma hit the human fleet and seemed to splash off like water hitting a rock. The angular armor plating on the human ships glowed red-hot from the energy impact, but the hulls remained intact. Emergency systems activated automatically, spraying coolant on overheated sections. "Damage report," Pete called out. "Minor scoring on the outer armor plates," Chief Brooks replied. "All systems operational. We're ready to return fire. On the main screen, Pete could see the Zephyrian fleet hesitating. This wasn't supposed to happen. Their opening attack should have crippled or destroyed most of the human ships. Instead, all 12 vessels were still intact and combat ready. War Leader, Kythera is hailing us again, Ensign Carter announced. Put him through, Pete said. The alien commander appeared on screen again, but now his multiple eyes were wide with surprise. How did you survive? Our bioplasma can melt through any known shield technology. We don't use shields, Pete replied. We use armor. Now let me show you what human weapons can do. All ships, you are free to engage. The human counterattack was nothing like the beautiful light show the Zephyrians had created. There were no visible beams or glowing projectiles. Instead, the human ships fired solid metal rods accelerated to tremendous speeds by magnetic launchers. The kinetic penetrators were invisible to the naked eye, traveling at several % of light speed. The first volley hit the Zephyrian formation like invisible hammers. Bioships that had been gracefully swimming through space suddenly convulsed, as meter-wide holes appeared in their hulls. Organic fluid sprayed into the vacuum, freezing instantly into glittering clouds. Direct hits on 15 enemy vessels, Lieutenant Johnson reported with excitement in her voice. They're not regenerating the damage. Pete watched the tactical display as chaos spread through the Zephyrian fleet. The bioships were trying to heal themselves, but they couldn't repair catastrophic physical trauma. Energy weapons left burns that could be regenerated. Kinetic weapons left holes that went all the way through vital organs. Second volley. Fire, Pete ordered. Another wave of invisible death struck the alien fleet. More bioships shuddered and went dark as their organic system shut down. The graceful formation began to break apart as damaged vessels lost control. War Leader Kythera appeared on screen again, his calm confidence replaced by panic. What are these weapons? How are you doing this? Physics, Pete replied. Mass times. Acceleration equals force. We just accelerated a lot of mass to very high speeds. The Zephyrian commander was shouting orders in his own language now. The remaining bioships began moving toward the human fleet, trying to close the distance for a direct assault. It was a desperate move that showed how badly the aliens were rattled. They're trying to ram us, Chief Brooks observed. Let them come, Pete said. All ships switch to point defense mode. Target their engines and command centers. The human ships began moving with mechanical precision, their targeting computers calculating intercept courses. As the bioships approached, the humans opened fire with smaller kinetic weapons designed for close combat. The projectiles were smaller but fired much faster, creating a wall of metal death that no organic ship could survive. Bioship after bioship died as they tried to reach the human fleet. Their living hulls, which had seemed so beautiful and powerful, were torn apart by weapons that cared nothing for their biological nature. Within minutes, over half the Zephyrian fleet was either destroyed or crippled. War Leader, this is your final warning, Pete announced. Withdraw your remaining ships, now, or we will destroy them all. On the screen, Kythera looked around his damaged command center. Organic walls were bleeding and several of his crew were dead or dying. For the first time in Zephyrian history, their fleet was losing a battle. This is impossible, the alien whispered. We are the Zephyrian Empire, we do not lose. You just did, Pete replied. The question now is whether you want to lose more ships or whether you want to go home and tell your leaders that humans are not to be underestimated. Kythera stared at Pete for a long moment, his multiple eyes filled with something that might have been respect or fear. Finally he spoke. We withdraw, he said quietly. But this is not over, human. My people will send a larger fleet. You have only delayed the inevitable. The transmission ended. On the tactical display, the surviving Zephyrian ships were turning away from the human fleet, their organic hulls pulsing with what looked like pain or exhaustion. Within an hour, they had jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of nearly 100 bioships. Pete looked around. Ambassador Jake Morrison sat quietly in his chair as chaos erupted around him in the Galactic Council chamber. The news of the Zephyrian defeat at New Denver had reached Nexus Prime just 2 hours ago, and the alien representatives were still trying to understand what they had heard. Speaker Veltar stood at the center of the chamber, his crystal body flashing with colors that Jake had learned meant extreme confusion and fear. The tall diamond-like being was trying to restore order, but his voice was drowned out by dozens of alien languages being spoken at once. "This is impossible," shouted General Thex from across the chamber. The gray-skinned military leader was standing up, his metals shaking as he gestured wildly. "The Zephyrians do not lose battles. They have never lost a major engagement in 200 years. The reports must be wrong," added Ambassador Zixith from the Althari Collective. The four-armed insect being was clicking his mandibles rapidly, a sign of stress in his species. "Human technology is primitive. They have been in space for less than a century." Jake continued to sit calmly while the aliens argued around him. His communication device was receiving updates from Earth every few minutes. The battle recordings were being analyzed by human scientists and military experts. Soon he would have detailed information to share with the Council if they wanted to hear it. "Order! Order!" Speaker Veltar finally managed to make himself heard above the noise. His crystal body was now flashing bright red, which meant anger. "We will discuss this matter in a civilized manner." The chamber slowly grew quiet. All eyes turned to Jake, who had remained silent since entering the room. "Human Representative Morrison," the speaker said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "We have received reports that a human fleet engaged Zephyrian forces at the New Denver system. The reports claim that the humans destroyed over 100 bioships while losing none of their own vessels. Is this information correct?" Jake stood up slowly. He could feel the weight of 47 different species watching him. "The information is correct, Speaker Veltar. Human forces engaged a Zephyrian fleet of 218 ships. We destroyed or crippled 112 enemy vessels. All human ships returned to base undamaged." The chamber exploded into noise again. Some aliens were shouting in disbelief. Others were whisper-talking in rapid, nervous voices. A few species were making sounds that Jake's translator couldn't convert into words. "Lies." General Thex stood up again, his face dark with anger. "No species has ever achieved such a victory against the Zephyrians. Your people must have used some kind of trick or deception." "What kind of trick would work against 200 bioships?" Jake asked calmly. That is..." General Thex struggled for words. "Perhaps you had help from another species. Or maybe the Zephyrians were not using their full strength." Jake activated his communication device and projected a holographic display above his head. The air filled with images from the battle at New Denver. The assembled aliens could see everything. The Zephyrian fleet arriving in overwhelming numbers, their confident demands for surrender, and their shock when human weapons proved devastatingly effective. "These are complete battle recordings," Jake announced. "You can analyze them yourselves." War leader Cathara brought a full attack fleet with orders to make an example of humanity. Instead, he was forced to retreat with less than half his ships intact. The chamber fell silent as the aliens watched the recordings. Jake could see different reactions on alien faces throughout the room. Some looked amazed. Others appeared frightened. A few seemed to be calculating what this news meant for their own species. Ambassador Nereus from the aquatic worlds was the first to speak. Her water tank glowed with bioluminescent patterns that meant excitement. "The human weapons pass through Zephyrian bioshields as if they do not exist. How is this possible?" "Our weapons are based on kinetic energy rather than plasma or particle beams," Jake explained. "We fire solid projectiles at very high speeds. Energy shields cannot stop physical objects." "But surely the Zephyrians will adapt," said Counselor Vex from the Corvani Empire. "They always learn from their defeats." "What defeats?" Jake asked. "According to every record in the Galactic Archives, the Zephyrians have never been defeated before. They have no experience with adapting to military failure." This comment caused another wave of whispered conversations throughout the chamber. Jake was right, and everyone knew it. The Zephyrian Empire had built its reputation on an unbroken string of victories. They had never needed to change their tactics because their tactics had always worked. Speaker Veltar raised his arms for silence. "Human Morrison, what are your people's intentions now? Will you be satisfied with defending your colonies, or do you plan to take aggressive action against the Zephyrian Empire?" Jake had been expecting this question. Earth's leaders had given him specific instructions on how to respond. Humanity seeks peace with all species, including the Zephyrians. We have no desire to conquer their territory or harm their people. However, we will defend ourselves against any future attacks. And if they send a larger fleet? Asked General Thex. Then we will defeat a larger fleet, Jake replied simply. The confidence in his voice sent a chill through the chamber. These aliens had lived in fear of Zephyrian power for generations. The idea that someone could speak so casually about defeating them was almost impossible to accept. You speak as if victory is certain, observed Ambassador Zixith. But the Zephyrians have thousands of bioships. They could send 10 times as many vessels as they used at New Denver. They could, Jake agreed. And we would still win. How can you be so sure? Demanded General Thex. Jake looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many alien representatives as possible. Because we designed our entire military specifically to fight the Zephyrians. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic was created with one purpose, to defeat bioship technology. We have been preparing for this war for years. This revelation stunned the assembled aliens into silence. The idea that a species would spend years preparing to fight an enemy they had never even encountered was foreign to their way of thinking. You planned this? Whispered Speaker Veltar. We planned to defend ourselves, Jake corrected. When we first learned about the Galactic Council 3 years ago, we also learned about the Zephyrian Empire. We studied every battle recording, every tactical analysis, every piece of information we could find. Then we built a fleet designed to exploit their weaknesses. Counselor Vex was staring at Jake with something like awe. Your species analyzed Zephyrian tactics for 3 years and built weapons specifically to counter them. Yes. And you never told anyone what you were doing? Would you have believed us if we had? Jake asked. The question hung in the air unanswered. Everyone in the chamber knew the truth. If humanity had announced 3 years ago that they were building a fleet to defeat the Zephyrians, the Galactic Council would have laughed at them. Ambassador Nereus activated her tank's communication system. Representative Morrison, my people have suffered under Zephyrian threats for decades. We have hidden in the deepest oceans of our worlds, always afraid. If your species can truly defeat them, would humanity consider an alliance? Before Jake could answer, other voices joined in. The Althari Collective would be interested in trade agreements, announced Ambassador Zixith. My people would offer military cooperation, added Counselor Vex. The Centauri Federation seeks diplomatic relations, called out another voice. Jake held up his hand for silence. My government appreciates these offers. We will consider all proposals for peaceful cooperation. Speaker Veltar was watching this exchange with growing amazement. In less than an hour, humanity had gone from being an ignored newcomer to the most sought-after ally in the galaxy. There is another matter we must discuss, the speaker announced. We have received emergency communications from the Zephyrian home system. Emperor Vexlan himself is assembling the largest battle fleet in their species' history. Intelligence. Reports suggest over 2,000 bioships are gathering for a direct attack on Earth. The chamber fell silent again. 2,000 ships was an almost unimaginable armada. It was larger than the combined fleets of most galactic civilizations. They mean to end this threat before it can grow, General Thex observed. 2,000 ships attacking your homeworld directly. Can your people survive such an assault? Jake stood up and smiled. It was the same calm, confident expression he had worn throughout the entire session. General Thex, he said, I think it's time the galaxy learned what humans are really capable of. He activated his communication device and began transmitting data back to Earth. The message was simple. The main event is coming. Prepare to show them everything. As Jake sent his message, alien representatives throughout the chamber were doing the same thing. News of the coming battle would spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species would be watching to see if the impossible could happen twice. Emperor Vexlan stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Deathbringer, watching the blue-green world of Earth grow larger on the main screen. Around him, the greatest armada in Zephyrian history filled space like a living cloud. 2,000. Bioships had answered his call, each one hungry for battle and revenge. The Emperor was larger than most of his species, standing nearly 10 feet tall with armor-like skin that had turned black with age. His forearms ended in razor-sharp claws and his multiple eyes glowed red with fury. No one had ever humiliated the Zephyrian Empire the way these humans had done at New Denver. "Status report," Vexlan commanded in a voice like grinding stone. War leader, Nexus, who had replaced the disgraced Cathara, bowed deeply before speaking. "All battle groups are in position, Your Majesty. We have surrounded the human home system. They cannot escape." "What about their defensive fleet?" "Our scouts report only civilian traffic around Earth," Nexus replied. "A few dozen merchant ships and orbital stations. No sign of military vessels." Emperor Vexlan's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. "The humans are hiding, hoping we will not find them. They think their victory at New Denver means something. Today we will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Empire." He turned to face the communication system. "Open a channel to the human world. Let them hear the voice of their destruction." The transmission activated, broadcasting on all frequencies toward Earth. Emperor Vexlan's image and voice would reach every human on the planet. "People of Earth," the Emperor began, his words translated into dozens of human languages. "I am Emperor Vexlan of the Zephyrian Empire. You have defied our rightful authority and destroyed our ships. For this crime, your species will be erased from existence." He gestured toward the massive fleet surrounding him. "Behold the true power of the Empire. 2,000 bioships, each one capable of cracking planets. Your pathetic victory at New Denver was nothing but luck. Today you face the full might of Zephyrian civilization." The Emperor paused, letting his words sink in. "I offer you one final chance. Surrender now, and I will allow 10% of your species to live as slaves. Refuse, and every human in this system will die." The transmission ended. Emperor Vexlan settled back in his throne, expecting the immediate surrender of the human government. Every other species had capitulated when faced with such overwhelming force. Instead, a new voice came over the communication system. It was calm, steady, and completely unafraid. "Emperor Vexlan, this is Admiral Lisa Carter of the Terran Defense Force. Your offer is rejected." The Emperor's eyes widened in surprise. He had expected panic, not defiance. "Admiral Carter, you are either very brave or very foolish. Do you not see the size of my fleet?" "I see it," Lisa replied. 2,000 ships is impressive. Unfortunately for you, it's not nearly enough." Vexlan stood up from his throne, his claws scraping against the organic metal. "Not enough? Human, I could destroy your entire world with a fraction of these ships." "You could try," Lisa said, "but first you'd have to get past our defenses." Suddenly, space around the Zephyrian fleet began to light up. What had appeared to be empty darkness revealed itself to be filled with hidden weapons platforms. Hundreds of defense stations powered up simultaneously, their targeting systems locking onto the bioships. "Impossible," whispered War Leader Nexus. "Our sensors showed nothing." "Human stealth technology," Lisa's voice explained over the communication channel. "We've been watching you since you entered our system. Every ship in your fleet is already targeted." Emperor Vexlan looked at the tactical displays in growing alarm. Red dots appeared all around his fleet, marking human weapons that had been hidden throughout the asteroid belt. More contacts appeared near Jupiter's moons, behind Saturn's rings, even in the outer system beyond Pluto. "Your Majesty," Nexus reported with panic in his voice, "I'm reading over 800 human vessels. They were completely invisible until now." The main screen shifted to show the human fleet as it emerged from hiding. Unlike the organic curves of Zephyrian bioships, the human vessels were angular and gray, covered in armor plating and weapon pods. Some were enormous, larger than any ship the Zephyrians had ever built. Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on the communication screen. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and calm eyes that seemed to look right through Emperor Vexlan. Your Majesty, allow me to introduce you to the complete Terran defense fleet. Every ship you see was designed for one purpose: to stop Zephyrian aggression. You have 800 ships, Vexlan snarled. I have 2,000. Mathematics is not on your side, human. Mathematics is exactly on our side, Lisa replied. Our computers have calculated the outcome of this battle down to the last decimal point. Would you like to know the results? Before the Emperor could answer, the human fleet opened fire. The attack was nothing like the chaotic plasma bombardments that characterized most space battles. Instead, it was coordinated with mechanical precision. Every human ship fired at exactly the same moment, their kinetic weapons targeting vital points. On the bioships with surgical accuracy, the first volley destroyed over 300 Zephyrian vessels in less than 10 seconds. Bioships that had taken decades to grow were torn apart by invisible projectiles traveling at tremendous speeds. Organic hulls that could regenerate from energy damage were helpless against weapons that simply punched holes through everything. In their path, Emperor Vexlan watched in horror as his magnificent fleet began to die around him. All ships attack formation. Destroy the human vessels. The surviving bioships tried to respond, but they were completely out of their element. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination, sharing targeting data through quantum communication networks. Every shot was calculated to cause maximum damage while avoiding friendly fire. The Zephyrians had never faced an enemy like this. Previous opponents had used energy shields and plasma weapons, technologies that bioships were designed to counter. But kinetic weapons were something entirely different. They ignored shields, overwhelmed armor, and caused damage that couldn't be repaired. Status report, Vexlan demanded as his flagship shuddered under impact. We've lost over half the fleet, Nexus reported, his voice barely above a whisper. The human weapons are cutting through our hulls like they're made of paper. Our bioshields are useless. On the main screen, Emperor Vexlan could see human dreadnoughts moving through the battle like predators among prey. These massive ships carried weapons that could destroy multiple bioships with single shots. Their armor was so thick that Zephyrian plasma fire barely scratched the surface. This is not possible, Vexlan said, though he was no longer sure he believed his own words. We are the Zephyrian Empire. We do not lose. Admiral Carter's voice came over the communication system again. Your Majesty, you're down to fewer than 600 ships. I'm offering you the same deal you offered us. Surrender now, and we'll allow your surviving vessels to return home. Never, Vexlan roared. The Empire does not surrender. Then the Empire dies today, Lisa replied calmly. The human fleet pressed their attack with relentless efficiency. Bioship after bioship fell to their kinetic weapons. The organic vessels, which had seemed so beautiful and powerful, were revealed to be vulnerable to an enemy that didn't fight according to galactic conventions. Within an hour, fewer than 200 Zephyrian ships remained intact. Emperor Vexlan's flagship was badly damaged, its organic systems failing one by one. Around him, his crew was dead or dying. Your Majesty, came a weak voice from the communication station. Admiral Carter is hailing us again. Vexlan looked around his ruined command center. The living walls were bleeding, and the air smelled of death. For the first time in his life, he was facing complete defeat. Put her through, he said quietly. Admiral Carter appeared on the damaged screen. Emperor Vexlan, this is your final chance. Surrender now, or we will destroy the remainder of your fleet. The Emperor stared at the human woman for a long moment. She showed no anger, no hatred, only calm determination. This was not revenge for her, it was simply a job that needed to be finished. We. Vexlan struggled with words he had never expected to speak. The Zephyrian Empire surrenders. The words echoed through space, transmitted on all frequencies for the galaxy to hear. For the first time in over 200 years, the Zephyrian Empire had been defeated. Thank you, Your Majesty, Admiral Carter replied. Your surviving ships are free to return home. But understand this, the age of Zephyrian expansion is over. Any future attacks on human territory or our allies will be met with the complete destruction of your empire. Emperor Vexlan nodded slowly. He understood. The humans had not just won a battle. They had ended an era. As the surviving bioships began their journey home, news of the battle spread across the galaxy. The species that had lived in fear of Zephyrian power for generations suddenly found themselves in a new universe. The bullies had been beaten. Peace was possible. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Jake Morrison stood before the Galactic Council one final time. The alien representatives looked at him with a mixture of respect and awe that would have been impossible just days before. The Terran government offers friendship and protection to all peaceful species, Jake announced. The galaxy no longer needs to fear the strong preying upon the weak.